really wanted to make sure that even if I was here in Chicago, that I was going to do this class because I'm going to miss you guys I couldn't handle missing you guys for 3 weeks straight. So I made a point of making this happen today. And I'm glad because I was intending the first download was about numbers. Okay. And I haven't done this class, even though I did at one point talk about numerology. There was a class on numerology in which we looked at the way that the sequences of numbers get used in our lives in different aspects, like the date of our birth and how in numerology it translates down into a single digit number. Because at the end of the day, there are only 9 single digits, excluding 0, right? That's it. Everything is formulated from those digits. Now, when I say formulated, it's a good word because have you guys ever thought of numbers as sacred language? Basically, numbers and nature and the universe speaks in a sacred language that is numbers. Okay. And I don't have the answer as to why that is, but the best way that I can explain it is to tell you, have you ever guys watched coding, like computer coding, right? Whenever you've seen, let's say, The Matrix, right? How many of you guys watched The Matrix and you've seen that everything translates into a numerical code, right? Well, that's exactly what we live. We live a reality created from numerical coding. I know it's hard to conceive, right? But it's the truth. And that coding or encoding is a language that is used, and that's what this talk is about, is used numbers as angel numbers or communication from our higher self or our higher wisdom, our guides and our messengers. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about why numbers are this language and how to interpret them better when they do come into your life. We're fortunate enough to live in a digital society, right? In which we're exposed to numbers all the time, right? So imagine in times past, angels needed to communicate in a different way. And we see this in the Bible, right? In fact, I looked up as part of this talk, the different ways that the numbers are mentioned in the Bible. And they're mentioned in many, many different ways, symbolically and through parables and so on. So obviously, our angels and our guides were communicating, but they didn't have access to communicating the way as easily as they do now with numbers. And I don't know about all of you, but me personally, I am constantly getting numerical messages. And that's part of the synchronicity that comes from being awake. Okay. So how many of you feel that you receive or see number sequences often in your life? Yes. How many? I can, by the show of hands, I see that all of you are. And that makes me very happy because that is a sign right there that you are awake and aware, right? By being awake and aware, you are in tune to the synchronicities of your life. Those little coincidences that are not coincidental. Those little things that show up to tell you that you're on the right path or you've taken a wrong turn. Okay? So numbers and number sequences are, yeah, you too, Annalise, I know. And it's funny because I don't recall, like I can't remember having that be part of my life years ago. I mean, do you guys remember having that kind of awareness, let's say 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago? Have you always been connected with numerical sequences and noticed them? Yes, Michi? Yeah, you have? Well, interestingly enough, I feel that every day more and more, I'm surrounded by people that are noticing these. Like I'll literally be standing and I hear people go, oh, it's 11:11, right? And you're like, how did that happen? It's similar to how today we are, we could be standing at a grocery line and someone's talking about their chakras, right? I mean, who the hell even talked about that, right? So I guess we are all collectively becoming more aware and awake to these nuances and synchronicities that are coming into our lives. So for me, numerical sequences come in a very specific way. And this is what I want to bring to your attention. Everybody's interpretation and exposure to their own numerical messages is very personal. Okay, very personal. For me, whenever I see a number, a zero, and a number, I know that my angels are communicating. I also receive numerical sequences together, like 3 numbers all together. And I know that that's also a message. But I know most specifically for myself, when I receive a number, a zero, and a number over and over, that's my angels specifically. That has nothing to do, that's like them saying, we got you. You're right. You're okay. Keep going. You're on the right path. That's how I feel when I see that number. In fact, I say a secret little thank you every time. So we all are kind of familiar with the 11:11 phenom, right? We we're always seeing this 11:11 thing going on, and we hear it from others. Like we hear it. Oh, when we see it on our clocks, we all stop for a moment, and we're going to start with that single digit, the 1 number. Okay, so one is actually intention. It represents, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a little simple little cheat sheet for you guys so that you can remember quickly what a number means. Okay, so remember that the number 1 represents intention. Okay, intention. And when it repeats 4 times, imagine that it is okay, so imagine that a building is held up by 4 columns. Okay, it's a foundational principle. It's 4 pillars of strength. Okay, so think of it in your mind as intention, foundationally strong. Okay, that's what it's telling you. It's telling you that collectively we are creating new pillars of strength in our intention. Okay, and that is why the number 4 actually in numerology represents those four pillars added up. Okay, but we'll get to that. So it's 1 is the great manifester. 1 is the number of great manifestation. Okay, so when 1 shows up like 11:11, it's telling you that we are in this manifestation of our intention. So when you see 11:11, you take a pause and ask yourself, what was I doing? What was I thinking? What was going on? What was in my mind at that very moment? Thank you, Liz. What was in my mind at that very moment that I got this number in my life telling me to pause and say, why, what's going on right now? What are you intending? Okay, so that is the number 1 sequence. Now I'm going to jump backwards to 0, or maybe forwards, whichever way you want to think about it. Because 0, like I said, is in my life all the time between 2 digits. And 0 is no ending. It's one of the 2 numbers that has no end and no beginning. It's infinity. Okay, it's a cycle, right? What is a circle but a continuous cycle, right? So the 0 represents no endings and no beginnings. But being that it has no ending and no beginning, there is a cyclical idea behind zero. In other words, when a number shows up for me, like recently, it's been 808, 808, 808, every day, 808. And that I know for me means I have been working on the abundance manifestation that I have been meditating on for almost 21 days now. And 8 represents abundance. So it's telling me, keep going. Perfect. You've got this. 808. Abundance, abundance, abundance. Right? And 8, by the way, is also the second number that we know as an infinity symbol, right? No beginning and no end. So how beautiful is that? So the message that I've been receiving lately is, I'm on my path and I will be benefiting from the abundance of being on that path with no beginning and no end. I mean, I feel awesome about that message coming through. Okay. So remember that 0 also, for me and for you, if it shows up between numbers, it is an expansion of the number before it and after it. Hence the 808 for me, right? So the 0 in the middle is the expansion, or it gives power to the other two. Okay, does that make sense? So that's how it works for me. So it's almost like a reinforcement. It's like, you know how when we do a mantra, we repeat it? So that is why number sequences come in repetitive form. It's almost like when we say, Amen, Amen, Amen. Doesn't that feel stronger the second time and the third time, right? It's never as strong one time as it is when we repeat it over and over again. It's like reinforcing the strength and the energy behind it, right? So that's what the 0 in between does. Okay, it has an expansive quality to it. All right, so 1111 also has a very unique situation to it as well. It can become or be seen as 22. Okay, when you see the number sequence 22, and this happened to me on a trip to Italy, that I literally saw 22 everywhere I went, like from the hotel room to, I was climbing up steps in Capri, and there were little tickets strewn on the floor as I walked up the steps that said 22, 22, 22, 22. And I was like, what the hell's going on here? Every hotel room that I went to was 22. And I stopped, I had to notice. I mean, let's put it this way. I was being beaten by the head on this. And I recognized that 22 is a master number, just like 11 is. And what does that mean? That means that it's the architect. It's the builder. Again, it's the 4 pillars. Remember, I told you that it's the 4 pillars of strength. So it's when you are masterfully architecting, building your future, your purpose, your direction. It's telling you that you are on your purpose. That keep going, you're building it. You are getting there. You're on your path. Having my coffee that Leslie made for me. Give me
There's no sugar in it though.
That's okay. It's okay. Oh, that's good. Because it's an hour earlier over here, guys. All right. So, so when you see the number 22, think of it as the architect. Okay. It's the master. And what is our masters, right? We've talked about many lives, many masters, or when masters come in to speak. Abraham Hicks speaks through the master Abraham, right? So masters are people that have traveled this path, have already done the work, have become enlightened beings, and are now protecting, guiding, and showing us the way because they've already been there, right? We get lost as human beings on our path here. And that's why angels are there to guide us on our way. They shine light to let us know that we are okay. We're always loved. We're always well. So this is the way they communicate. So when you see 22 or when you see 1111, you are being touched by the masters to let you know you're okay. All right. So number 2, cheat sheet is called balance. Okay. That's the word you're going to remember when you see 2. And it's the representation of pairs, right? The scales. They're always 2, correct? It's creating balance. We are better with 2. Okay. So balance is the representation of that number. And 2 is also the number of a twin flame. So when you find your twin flame or when you are working with your twin flame, you feel in balance or they balance you. So it's kind of the yin and yang concept, right? It's finding coherence and balance between 2 forces. That's 2. Okay. So then you have, so one other thing about 2 is that it's telling you to keep trusting, to trust. Okay, that's an important aspect of number 2. Number 3, cheat sheet word, support. Okay, so number 3 shows up as support. And the number 3, okay, is that you are being guided. So you are having the support that you need. It's telling you that you are being guided and supported. So that is what the aspect of 3 is. So I'm going to read something else to you guys so I'm going to pull my other notes here. So when you see these numbers in triple sequences, 111, 222, 333, 444, how many times has that happened to you guys? I don't know about you, but it happens to me all the time. I constantly, recently, the number that I was receiving was 555. 555, 555, 555. And then I started getting 333, 444, 333, 444. Lately, that's what's been coming into my life. And I dived into it. And number 1, the first one that came in was 555. And I'm going to jump to it for a second because 555, I got a little worried because it was called change. That's the cheat sheet number for 5. Okay. Change. And the message that I was getting everywhere was there's change coming. There's change coming. In fact, last class, I don't know if you remember, I used that message for all of you. I said, all of you will be experiencing change. Okay. And change is painful sometimes. You know, we all like things to feel kind of the security and safety of stability and habits that we know, that we like. We love how it feels when everything is like the same. We know what's going to happen, right? We feel comforted by that security, but that doesn't offer expansion. So we know that the only constant in life is change, correct? Just when we think that everything is stable, hence Deborah's experience at the moment, just when we think that everything is perfectly fine and everything's good, and something comes to like sideswipe us and cause a change in our lives. And I know from knowing all of you personally that I have seen that going on in quite a few of your lives. So the energy of change is very powerful right now. Okay. And that's what I've been receiving. So sometimes the message is for me and sometimes the message is for me to give to others. Like at the end of this talk today, I'm going to talk about the constellations because something came through last night that I need to share. But anyway, 333 is that your spiritual guides are sending you love, support, and guidance. Okay? Support and guidance. That's what 3 does.
Well, what's the triple though? The triple sequence, is there?
The triple sequence is just the reinforcements. It's like I was saying that it's repeating it so that to make sure you got this. It's like, did you hear me? I said 3. Now, one more time. Let me say it again. 3. And one more time, just in case you missed it, 3. Okay? That's kind of the way they work. All right? Because if you saw a single digit, would you pay attention? Right? No, you just like ignore it, right? So they want to make sure you saw it, so they have to do it 3 times. Otherwise, you don't get it. It's like knocking on the door. Do you only do that? No, right? How many times do we knock, right? We go, right? Think about it that way. So it's kind of like, oh, well, I didn't hear that. Did I hear that? No, I didn't hear. No. Okay, now I got it. I heard you. Okay, I'm here. Got it.
Do you remember that song? Knock 3 times on the ceiling if you want me. Twice on the floor.
The pipe. Oh my God, we're showing our age, girl. All right.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, that wasn't me. Somebody was speaking through me. No.
So think about it that way, right? So think every time you're going to laugh next time you see a 3 sequence number, because you're going to remember me knocking. Okay. So that's what they do. They want to make sure that you heard the knock on the door. Okay. So that's what the triple sequences come into play with. So number 4, okay. 4 is protection. 4 is protection. So 3 is guidance, but 4 is protection. And remember those 4 pillars, right? Remember those 4 pillars of 1111 and the master number. That means you are protected. Okay? That whatever you're doing is supported. So protection, your spiritual guides are protecting and watching over you. You know that you're never alone, right? You're never alone anyway. We just forget. But we are always guided and we are always protected. But when 444 shows up, you know for a fact that you are being protected. Okay? So number 5, I'm going to go back to 5 because I already mentioned it. Change. Cheat sheet for 5. Change. Okay? And sometimes, like I said, 5 shows up to tell us that even though things are changing, they are changing for the better. They may be painful. I'm not going to say it's not fun. Okay? As in any sequence, everything that requires change requires a degree of pain. Okay, we have to go through it. Birthing something, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but you know, birthing happens to be a very painful experience. Okay, and it's for the good, right? You have to go through it. You have to go through it. And birthing and change is that way. So sometimes it's change. Sometimes the change is for the better, even though you're going to go through something that is going to be painful, right? All right, so number 6. It's funny because number 6 and the sequence of 666 gets a bad rap. Does it not? It gets a bad rap. And it's funny because 6 rarely shows up for me. But 6 actually represents reflection. Okay? 6 is you may be focusing on the external or material world or your ego. So that's why 6 gets a bad rap, because 6 is saying to you, are you really coming from a place of love? Or are you coming from your head? Are you coming from your ego? It's telling you, pay attention to what's really important in life. Reflect. Are you in a good state with yourself? Are you in a state of love? Or are you in your ego? It's a little bit of a little red flag for the ego. That's why 666 isn't one of our favorite numbers. Because it's kind of telling you, are you really connected with God? Are you really connected to love? Are you channeling that connection? Or are you being selfish versus selfless?
Mm.
Right? So reflect is what 6 brings. Okay. So now we go on to 7. I love 7. Lucky number 7, right? How many times have you been in the casino and it's like 7, right? Well, 7 represents fortune. Okay. Fortune. That's basically, and it's interesting because 8, which we're going to cover next, of course, is abundance. Like I mentioned before, that 808 was showing up for me. But what's the difference between fortune and abundance? They're two sides of the same coin, correct? Because we all want fortune to feel abundant. But fortune is just good luck. In other words, it's what we call those serendipitous moments of like, oh my God, how lucky I am. I made it to the train on time. I got the Uber, that I was looking, those little moments of like, oh, wow, the universe is working in my favor. You got that? That's what 7 is. And that's what the sequence of 777 brings. Fortune, luck, good fortune coming your way, claim it. That's 777. Okay. Then we go to 8. Okay. And 8, like I mentioned earlier, is abundance. It's the cycle of abundance and infinity, never ending, no beginnings, always in harmony. Always in harmony. That's why the infinity symbol represents the movement and the cycles of nature. There's no beginning and no end. We are here eternally in a cycle of abundance. If we see it that way, it's our free will and choice to decide whether we perceive it that way or not. So 888 shows up to tell us this is all good. This is all good. So abundance and wealth is flowing into your life if 888 is showing up. Or for me, 808, which does a lot. Okay. So those are your cheat sheets for the numbers so that when you see them, you can quickly say, connect to the word that each number represents and be able to decipher right away. Now, of course, guys, there is so much information on numbers on YouTube, on Google. I mean, you can literally look anything up that you desire. But I wanted for you to just have a little quick reference in your minds as to when a number shows up. You don't have to even do that. If you really start connecting those numbers with the word that I gave you that connects with it, you'll be able to quickly know right away what your angels are trying to tell you. Okay? So what sequence of numbers is showing up for you guys these days? Anybody want to share?
I've always gotten 911.
911. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So 9 is release. We didn't talk about 9. 9 is release resistance. So let go of what no longer serves you, Michi. And backed up by the 1 and the 1, which is, what was it? Intention. What is your intention behind the releasing of resistance to something? Could it be your book? Interesting, right? You see how that works? So when a number is showing up, you connect it. And I'm so glad you gave that sequence because that sequence is personal to you. You get it? So every time a number shows up, don't discard it. If you paid attention to it, if you noticed it, then it means something. That's enough. Don't say, oh, that's just stupid. What did I even that? No, pay attention. And then take a moment, take a breath, stop, pause. What were you thinking about in that precise moment when the number showed up? What were you feeling? What came up for you? Don't discard it. Write it down, take a moment and write down the number and then go back to it and say, and reflect upon it and say, what are you here to show me? Because the answers are always there for you. So I felt that when you said 911, right? And it's funny because 911 has become symbolic for calling for help, right?
Well, funny enough that when I ask for something with angels, the way I've connected is when I get a 911.
Mm.
Always. And
So
then
there
I
you go.
usually get what I want. Usually like the angels are answering me.
Right. You always get a sign, right?
I get a sign.
And what's beautiful about that is when you are able to practice that connection, okay? And you get into the practice of it, like you thank it, first of all, you say, thank you. Thank you for the message. Can you please clarify? Right? Can I get some more so that I'm 100% sure of what you're trying to speak to me about? Right? We can choose to ask and use our energy to get the information. And usually more things will show up to reinforce the idea that they're trying to come across. Okay? So trust that. Don't doubt it. Don't discard it. Trust it. It's really important. It's funny because I woke up this morning and I'm gonna close this talk with the revelations that I had last night. And it's really an interesting culmination of things because yesterday being with Maritza and having her have been the person that introduced me to constellations, knowing that you guys are going to go do the constellation, some of you are going to go. And Leslie and I were together and we started watching the show, Another Self on Netflix.
Awesome.
Oh my God. And I
Awesome.
cried. I was crying the entire time. I mean, I'm a mess. So this morning's meditation with me, I woke up early and I connected again. And I had very lucid dreams last night about what I finally understood how to explain constellations. Because you know how I've had that challenge, right? You've asked me, what is it about? How does it work? What do you do? I finally understood by what happened to me last night and what I felt this morning when I was meditating. Firstly, a constellation, we are all, as you know, energetic beings, right? We're vibrational. But the vibration of pain and grief, which Zoraida is feeling at the moment, right? Is very powerful. It's very powerful, and it's an energetic vibration that gets stuck inside of us, in our DNA, in our bodies, in our souls, energetically and ancestrally. So our grandmothers, our grandfathers, any traumatic, painful burden that they carried, okay, is embedded within us. Now, what that show, if any of you have watched it, and when you're going to experience these constellations, which are incredibly powerful healing tools, as you can see in that show, the pain burden that is carried by one person, okay, can get stuck and not be released, okay? And it's kind of like not allowing yourself to feel your emotions. It's similar to that. When we're not allowed to express or feel our anger, we repress it and it can turn into a cancer. You understand? It can toxify our bodies and burden us with a disease because we are not at ease. So what the constellation allows you to do is it opens a portal to the pain resonance within you that is being carried, and you sometimes carry your ancestors' pain. Now, some of us are on a mission to release that for those that came from the past that were not allowed to express their emotions. We are in a society today that we are actually given a lot of freedom to express our emotions. Okay, we're becoming very awakened beings. I know for myself, and my mom can testify to this, that I naturally do this. I did it when I was a child. In fact, I remember distinctly having my grand aunt Matilde, who passed a year later, came through me and cried through me. And it was one of the most crazy experiences. I don't know how old I was, maybe 10 or 11. And she had passed away from a blood hemorrhage in her brain. And that whole evening, I was seeing a woman, an older woman with gray hair. I got hit in the head. I heard voices that were a woman's voice. And it wasn't until I went into my bedroom and I told my mom this. I went into her bedroom and I told her what I was experiencing because I couldn't understand it. And then I went into my own bedroom. My mom came to me and she said, "Oh my God, Dadi, do you know that it's a year since Matilde passed away?" And when she said the word Matilde, when she said her name, I started crying, like crying and crying and crying and crying. And I was like telling her, "Mom, I'm not crying. It's not me that's crying. It's her. She's crying." And I knew that she had come through me to express this pain burden that she had. That is what happens in constellations. Someone carries the pain burden for you and is allowed to express it for you because the pain is so great inside of you that you don't have the strength to do it yourself. So someone is assigned that burden. And through the release of that emotion, you heal it. Okay? I finally got it. I have been blessed to experience it, and I'm able to do it. In fact, when Deborah and I were at Rancho, her brother came through me the same way. When I'm in a quiet space, when I connect with my inner self, I'm able to channel people that have passed, and I can express their pain burden. In the case of Deborah, it was forgiveness. He wanted to be forgiven for the pain that he had caused his family. And he wanted her to know that how much she is loved and how much of a great sister she was to him. So I'm able to do that naturally. And now I understand what a constellation does. There's a facilitator that allows that pain burden by assignment to come through someone else for you so that you can release the pain body that's inside and stuck. Okay? That's basically what it is. And last night, the dream that came through me was the pain body of my family. And the reason that Matilda came through me was because she was an abused woman. I recognize now, and this mom was a revelation that I just had today. I realized that the reason that she came through me, she picked me, was because my energetic resonance was of abuse. And the irony was that I wasn't abused in that life, in this life yet. I was going to be by a man. So you understand? And I had been abused in past lives. So that resonance was still inside of me. That pain burden was still inside of me. So her vibration and my vibration lined up. You get it? And I was able to help her release that through me. I felt it for her. I cried for her. I cried the tears that she wasn't able to cry, or refused to cry, or was afraid to cry. You get that? It's very powerful. Yes, Mom.
Your Aunt Matilda was a very unhappy woman. She was
Yes.
really happy.
She was burdened by pain of abuse and emotional abuse, because it wasn't physical abuse, it was emotional abuse.
Right.
So she was burdened by emotional abuse, just like I would be and had been. So my vibrational resonance aligned with her, and I was able to release it for her. I was 11. I didn't know what was going on, but I do know that I feel today the clarity of knowing that that's exactly what happened. And guess what? Last night I dreamt with my ex-husband, and I dreamt with his pain burden. And I forgave him truly for understanding that he was also abused. Therefore, my son experienced the same thing. We carry our ancestral lineage, guys. Those of us that are strong enough can release it for everyone that came before us. And we get chosen, by the way. The strong ones in our lives, the strong ones that know, that are awakened, that are enlightened to a space of understanding that there's more to this than meets the eye, can do this for others. And that's what a constellation does. It's very challenging to put your head around it, but let me tell you something, it's incredibly real. And I recognize now, this moment, this morning, I cried through my entire meditation, that until we get to a place where we can feel the pain burden of others within our hearts and allow ourselves to release it for them, we will never become one family. One, the number one. Unity. In the Bible, the number one is expressed as unity. And we cannot be unified, connected in love unless we understand the pain burden of another in our hearts, really deep inside. When we feel it, when we cry for someone that's been in pain, we take on that pain burden and help them compassionately by releasing it. When we truly understand what it feels like. Okay? When we stop the blame game and we take full responsibility for the fact that all of us have had pain, whether it's in this lifetime or another. We've all felt it. So when we feel that pain in our hearts from someone else, we take on that burden and do what they're not capable of doing, which is release it. I hope that makes sense for all of you. And I hope that if you get an opportunity to watch that show, it really does a phenomenal job of expressing this fact. And I want you to know that I didn't get it until now. I don't know how it works, but I do know that we are connected to others by our own vibrational frequency. And sometimes that attraction is through pain. Okay? Sometimes we carry that burden for those that cannot carry it. And that makes us closer to our brethren. It makes us understand with true compassion what it is to feel the pain of somebody else. Hence why Jesus felt our pain and released it for us. And that is why we call him our savior. Not because in the religious sense of the word, but because he took the pain burden for himself of everyone. That's really powerful. But you know what's beautiful? Is that we all have this capacity for love. We all have it in us. We are love. It's when we deny the fact that we are love that we suffer. When we get tricked or trapped into thinking that we are not love. We are pure light, pure love without judgment. We're not meant to be in pain. We're not meant to carry those burdens. In fact, if you look at that show and the first three kill you, I mean, they just like, oh, okay, because the things that you see happen in people's lives that are almost unbelievable. Like, how could that be? And you cry like a baby seeing that in front of you, and you say, how could a human being put themselves in that position and cause so much pain? And yet we do, because we forget who we really are. We get tricked. We get trapped. So we got to remember who we really are and help anyone we can to release their own pain burdens. The faster we do this, the more unified and one we will be. We will become one at some point, believe it or not. When we all remember that our essence, our true essence, and the essence that creates worlds is love. Thank you, guys. Thank you for listening. I hope that those of you who are going to experience the constellations, I can't talk about constellations without crying. Leslie's seen me crying the entire time. I'm like, literally, I guess once you are connected to that energy, you connect to it immediately through the freaking TV. I was telling her last night, I can't believe that through this TV, I'm still feeling exactly what I felt that day. And it's a beautiful thing because they are tears of joy. Don't get me wrong. Every tear that I have cried since last night has been tears of joy. Yes, Leo. I see your hand up. There you
Yes,
go.
I was trying to unmute. So, in regards to numbers, how is this relatable to, or is it something totally different? And what is your take on quantum healing?
Well, okay, that's a whammy. Okay, so when you're
Sorry.
that's okay. When you're talking about quantum, okay, and quantum physics, you're talking about an energetic field. So everything is related, believe it or not, because when we tap into the numeric field of the universe, which is how I started. I don't know if you were on, Leo, when I started the conversation. Were
Yes.
you? Yes. Okay. So when I started talking about number sequences and numbers in general, they are the sacred language of the universe. Okay. It's like coding in a computer. When you code in computer, you code in numbers, right? You program in numbers. So the quantum field carries that matrix. And yes, matrix, that's the reason the movies Matrix are Matrix.
Right.
Because the quantum field is the matrix. Okay. And let me tell you, I was watching Doctor Strange in the multi-universe thing on the plane on the way over here. So it's been like the theme of the trip. Okay. When you watch that movie, if you want, have you guys seen Doctor Strange and the multiverse or whatever? Okay. So it tells you and shows you in a movie how there are many universes, right? Which in reality, what we're talking about is many dimensions. Okay. And those dimensions in our moment in time right now on the earth, we are not capable of connecting to the way that time travel, Let's talk about that's quantum physics, okay? So quantum entanglement, by the way, because I'm going to talk a minute about quantum entanglement, is how they proved that the quantum field responds or changes by observation. Okay, so they did an experiment. In other words, by the very fact that we observe an atom, it changes. That means that we manipulate our reality. You know, this is the what happens to us as human beings. And in the first episode of which I hope you guys watch, the young woman has a pain burden that has caused her cancer. Okay. And she gets a horrible diagnosis. And that's how she finds the constellation process. And the doctor asks her a question. No, not the guy that does the constellations, Saman, right?
Yeah.
Saman.
He asks her this question. He says, "Can you thank your cancer?"
Oh, yes, I remember that. Yes.
And she says, "Absolutely not." But later, she does. And that's how I felt last night when I dreamt of Tom. I thanked Tom. I thanked him for being the person that catapulted me to be who I am today.
You know, shit, I'm gonna thank Tom too. because
Maribel.
yeah, I'm gonna thank him too.
I blessed him and I thanked him and I said, "Thank you for the abuse. Thank you." So, you know what? We can all get to a place where we can thank our abusers, where we can thank our cancer, because they're there to teach us. They're there to teach us how to go about becoming whole and complete and in love and being only love. That is the greatest gift. So remember who you really are, guys. And I hope that the constellations provide that incredibly powerful healing that it did for me. I only went once. I mean, Maritza went 9 times. It's crazy. For me, even the one time when I'm even exposed to it, like even in a TV program, it gets me. At Rancho, it happened too, when I was with my daughter. My daughter and I had such incredible dreams together. In fact, she dreamt that she was fighting my ex-husband, Tom, in a dream, and she doesn't even know him. And she was fighting him for me. How telling is that? While the
Amazing.
constellations were going on, we all felt it. Everyone felt it. So you guys are all very powerful people. You have amazing strength inside of you. And you have the capacity to love so purely and so powerfully that you can take on the burden of the world if you try. So go out there and be light and be love. And thank you, Maribel, for saying such beautiful things. Thank you all.
Thank you.
I will miss you for 2 weeks. Please know.
Whatever.
Please know that I'll be back always. And thanks for coming on board today with me.